What about animals? Do you think you'll be seeing any bats or anything like that in the cave today? Not sure. Yeah. You doubt it? Actually, you're right. You won't see any animals down here. There's no way for them to get in. So there's no bats living down here. It'd be a perfect time, perfect place for them to be sleeping during the day. There's no natural entrance or exit. So when they found the cave, it was always sealed off from the surface ever since the cave was formed, which is why they wanted them to wait, just in case there were any toxic gases. But that's something you don't really have to worry about in a limestone cave like this. So they sealed it off again to keep it in its natural state, which is why we don't see any critters down here. If anything did get done, we probably had to help them get back outside because there's nothing for any of those critters to eat down here. Not much life going on out here. So every once in a while I have a little girl on a tour who's very concerned she's going to see bears in the cave, and there's no bears down here either. So don't worry about that. So what we're going to do is we're going to head on to the next room here, which is the largest room in the cave. So please follow me down behind me this way, and we'll get a nice up-close look at this room. Okay, so as we come on into the room here, you can see it's pretty large. There are two fissures, two cracks in the ceiling up there. A lot more of that acid to drip in. Crack over here, this is the one we've been following along the tour, and is the one that we will follow along the rest of the tour as we go over the stairs in a little bit. And then there's the other crack right here above our heads. A lot of water will drip in here too. And if you follow that crack all the way back up into the corner, you'll see some neat formations, some things we haven't really seen so far. All the way up in the corner where the crack meets the wall, you'll see something sticking through the cracks up there. They look like tree roots in a way. But we're still about 50 feet underground here, roughly. So definitely not tree roots. Tree roots, we call those ribbon stalactites. So stalactites, they cling tightly to the ceiling. And the ribbon part, just because it creates a very, curvy-like shape. And we actually have nicknamed those formations cave bacon, because it does look a little bit like bacon up there growing. So there's several places in the cave where there's cave bacon growing, and that's just because the ceiling is sort of at an angle, and when the water drips on in here, the calcite, the mineral that creates the formations, gets deposited however the water runs into the cave. So calcite is just a very common mineral. It's found in all the limestone here around us. That's pretty much what makes up the limestone. But when the water comes through it, through the cracks up there, it brings the calcite with it. Wherever the water drips in the cave is where the calcite will get deposited and build up over hundreds to many thousands of years to create these formations. Another large formation that you see right there, actually, underneath all that cave bacon, is what we call flowstone. It kind of looks like somebody spilled caramel all over the rocks and rubble there. Now, flowstone forms over, over rocks and things like that. It's common. You'll see it in every room in the cave. If you guys could touch the flowstone, what do you think? Would it be rough or smooth? Any ideas? Smooth, typically. Everybody usually thinks smooth, and just about everybody's always wrong, because it would actually be rough. It would sort of feel like a fine-grained sandpaper here. And that's because of the millions of little calcite crystals that have been building up in there for thousands of years. Now, the stalagmite that we touched a few minutes ago was quite smooth because for the past 70 years or so, people have been allowed to touch that one, which polishes it, it stops it from growing, and it changes its color. So those are all three good reasons not to touch all the formations in our cave here. So some of the ones that have never been touched by people in our cave, if you were to touch them, not only would they stop growing probably, but they would feel kind of like a sandpaper. One more formation I do want to point out is up above our heads on the ceiling. You can't really see them too well. They're rather small in this room still, but you see there are some stalactites right up here. Now, these ones we call soda straws. Soda straw stalactites. We call them that because they actually are hollow on the inside, so you could use them like a straw. Now, these ones right here, you can see lots of water droplets actually hanging from them. They'll probably drop in a minute here. So the calcite's building up on them, and as that gets built up and deposited, they grow longer. Still 100 years for an inch member, which makes these about 300 years old or so. It's very old, but still very, very young. So we'll see what these look like in just a little bit. They get much bigger. So does anybody have any questions about anything we've seen in the room so far, or anything we've seen in the cave? Anything else you're really curious about yet? Not yet? All right. Well, what we're going to do then is we're going to go up towards the staircase here, and we'll work our way a little bit further on into the cave then. So please follow me on up this way. You will see the natural floor of the cave down here across from us on the left-hand side. It's very rugged, very rough. A lot of formations down there as well. when the explorers came through, it may have looked a little bit more like this, very dark, very dim. That's the natural environment in our cave, which is total darkness. So there's a lot of light in here now compared to what it's normally like in the cave. So when the explorers came through, well, the first people into the cave were the Brigham family. They weren't explorers, they weren't professionals, they were just the people who lived on the land here. And since they owned the land, they owned the cave. They wanted to check it out. So they would have had to be very careful to come through here without hurting themselves. There's a big 15-foot drop, about 2 feet right in front of me, goes all the way down there. Another low spot in the cave, and you have to be very careful. No matter what time period you're in, a cave explorer has to be extremely careful because you could very easily break your leg or worse. So. Now there will be a tour group, I think they're going to be passing us in a moment. So when they do, stay up along the left-hand railing here. You can come up right here behind me and we'll let them pass us as they come over the stairs. And earlier I was talking about a big collapse, remember? You will see another collapse up here ahead of us. This one looks a little bit different, though. This one has lots and lots of flowstone growing up on it there. So remember, it takes thousands of years for flowstone to grow this large, which tells us this collapse must have happened many thousands of years ago at least. Now, if you're worried you don't really see it too well, when we do go over the stairs, you'll see it nice up and close there. You'll see and you'll hear a lot of water dripping in, so there's still a lot of active growth going on today. Okay. So when the explorers saw the collapse up here, remember, like I said a moment ago, it was very dark. And it sort of looked like a blockade or a roadblock here. They thought that was the end of the cave, but they were standing here in the darkness and in the silence. They could hear quite a bit of water dripping in this area. You'll hear and you'll see a lot up here. Like I said a moment ago, you'll see it. They thought there might be more cave in this area, something on the far side, which obviously we know because there's people coming from there. But they didn't know that when they first came through here. And they hoped to find more cave, maybe even some standing water, because there is so much water dripping in this area. There must be some ponds or lakes or something. So they found both of those things. They found more cave. They also found what they described as a lake when they first came through. And we'll see that when we go over the stairs in just a couple minutes here. So it is a nice day, and after the tour, you go back to the surface. If you're interested in sticking around, there are some really cool nature trails. They're all free to take. One is called the Karst View Trail, and it's very short. As a matter of fact, you could take it all on your way back to the parking lot. And during that trail, you can walk above on the surface of this collapse up here. This is also another inactive sinkhole from thousands of years ago. So it's just a very small divot in the surface. You wouldn't know anything else. You wouldn't know that it was actually a sinkhole if we just came upon it on a random day. So we're going to go on up over the stairs there, check everything out. As we go over the stairs, follow behind me on the left here. There's a few rocks that do kind of stick out on the top and the right, so careful for those. Follow behind me on the left at the top of the stairs. Get a really nice look at all the flowstone. You'll see there's lots of cave bacon even growing in the flowstone. Keep an eye out for that. So as you slowly work your way on down the stairs, get a good look, and then you can come on all the way down along this handrail in here, and you can kind of line up right along. Just as long as you can see the water here, you'll be just fine. A lot of things to see in this room here. So you guys can see right one thing right here if you like. So the water that you see here is actually the same temperature as the air. It's 50 degrees, so you wouldn't want to